The Biden's 4 years were the third term of Barack Obama. Operating through Susan Rice, operating through Valerie Jarrett, operating through Ron Klain in the early days. Yeah, look, it was an open secret, Alex, in political circles that Joe Biden was around the bend, even when he was running in 2020. Let's remember that Barack Obama tried to prop up Cory Booker. He tried to prop up Pete Buttigieg. He tried to prop up various candidates. Could not be done. And ultimately, they ended up through the process of elimination with Joe Biden, largely because Joe Biden was completely controllable. Not only was there the issue of his non-functionality, but also the Obamas were well aware of the mass corruption that Joe Biden had engaged in as vice president, and they knew he was controllable. It's shocking, but let's get down to the who here, because the part that never made sense to me were the auto pen signed pardons, not for his political cronies like Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi and Liz Cheney and Dr. Fauci and others, but the hardened criminals, the murderers, the drug dealers, people who, by the way, never applied for a pardon and never expressed any remorse. A huge number of these. So who was operating the actual pardon auto pen? The answer, by the way, is a woman named Neera Tanden and a guy named Steve Nelson. Congressman Tim Burchett, who I think is a real straight shooter, has speculated that money may have changed hands, that may be somehow, maybe the way some of those hardened criminals got pardons, but there's no rhyme or reason. It wasn't just his political cronies, it was these horrific criminals.
Roger, this auto pen thing that Trump keeps hammering, the corporate media only focuses on the media and the Democrats lying about Biden's cognitive massive decline. We talked about it when he was running 5.5, 6 years ago and got you and I attacked. It was clear then. It's gotten a lot worse, obviously, since. But everybody's focusing on, the Jake Tapper's now got a best-selling book about when he helped cover it up himself. The scandal is, the conservatives patting ourselves on the back that we could see a vegetable and didn't believe the media. That, to me, is a total distraction from the fact that Biden wasn't the president, and it was a rule by committee with Obama and others and the chief of staff, and that it's totally illegal. And Trump keeps hammering this. No one else seems to. Most conservatives or populists take the bait on this. Oh, look, the media admits he was cognitive decline. Now we're vindicated, as if we need them to vindicate us. But Trump says treasonous thugs who will pay. Joe Biden, again, was not the president. His actions are illegal. This is treason at the highest level. I remember you in the last few months of the election in 2020, on air, but also privately, and on air explaining how it would be ruled by committee, how Biden was being put in to be a total puppet, how Obama was already getting his new White House down the street, and who would be running it. And then we get undercover O'Keefe Media Group videos of the deputy chief of staff admitting all this recently. He said Trump is going to win, but it's not going to be enough. He had a landslide in 2016 that overpowered the baked-in fraud that they have, around 10%. And you said he's going to lose about a month before. And I said, really? And you said, yeah, watch. He's going to really win, but it's not going to be big enough. This time you said privately a few months before, the night before, no, he's going to win. It'll be even bigger landslide than 2016, which it was. He won the popular and the electoral college. You nailed it again.
Yeah, look, it was an open secret, Alex, in political circles that Joe Biden was around the bend, even when he was running in 2020. Let's remember that Barack Obama tried to prop up Cory Booker. He tried to prop up Pete Buttigieg. He tried to prop up various candidates. Could not be done. And ultimately, they ended up through the process of elimination with Joe Biden, largely because Joe Biden was completely controllable. Not only was there the issue of his non-functionality, but also the Obamas were well aware of the mass corruption that Joe Biden had engaged in as vice president, and they knew he was controllable. Then the media asked us to ignore what we could see with our own eyes. The fact that he could barely finish a sentence. He would just kind of trail off. Numerous neurologists told me that was a clear sign of the onset of senile dementia. The fact that he would talk to people who didn't exist, that he would constantly fall down, that he couldn't figure out how to exit stage left, stage right. The fact that his wife had to jump in and answer questions for him in any intense interview was very clear to anybody, including reporters, that there was nobody home. Now they tell us last Friday that days before that, he got a diagnosis of a serious aggressive prostate cancer. But actually, he blurted out in an interview in 2022 that he was fighting cancer. So which is it? Was this a new diagnosis, or was he telling the truth in 2022? It's shocking, but let's get down to the who here, because the part that never made sense to me were the auto pen signed pardons, not for his political cronies like Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi and Liz Cheney and Dr. Fauci and others, but the hardened criminals, the murderers, the drug dealers, people who, by the way, never applied for a pardon and never expressed any remorse. A huge number of these. So who was operating the actual pardon auto pen? The answer, by the way, is a woman named Neera Tanden and a guy named Steve Nelson. Congressman Tim Burchett, who I think is a real straight shooter, has speculated that money may have changed hands, that may be somehow, maybe the way some of those hardened criminals got pardons, but there's no rhyme or reason. It wasn't just his political cronies. It was these horrific criminals.
And let's flesh that out. Let's stop right there, because that's key. And I was talking to some high-level federal prosecutors over the weekend, and they were bringing this up. Just like Al Capone, you couldn't get him on the murders because he covered that up too well, but you could get him on income tax evasion. It's the same thing. We know the White House Chief of Staff, Obama, that committee with the key bills, the executive orders legislation, the banning of the sale of liquid natural gas, that was all them running it. But things were such a free-for-all lawlessness that you even got the aides in there. Clearly, that's what it all points at, getting hundreds of thousands of dollars or more per person, slipping them cash or bars of gold or diamonds or whatever it was, to then just go in and use the auto pen as well. That just shows how anytime there's rule by committee, it becomes a runaway train, which this was. That's why we also saw so much policy even inside the White House at loggerheads with its own self, not rhyme or reason, because it was just a giant free-for-all.
Yeah, I think that's true because, look, the Biden's 4 years were the third term of Barack Obama, operating through Susan Rice, operating through Valerie Jarrett, operating through Ron Klain in the early days. And of course, anytime you have that kind of third party dominance, you're going to have problems. That's why the administration never had any cogent immigration policy. There were some arguing we can't just have an open border, while others were arguing why not. Of course, in the end, that's precisely what they had. I thought, in all honesty, that we ran a much, much better campaign in 2024. And frankly, they ran a horrific campaign. They were so shocked by Joe's meltdown in the one debate that he had with Donald Trump that they immediately ignominiously dumped him. And then the people who are constantly lecturing us about democracy used an entirely undemocratic system in which not a single Democrat primary or caucus voter voted for their presidential nominee, Kamala Harris, who was basically foisted on the party over Joe's objections in a coup engineered by Barack Obama and, frankly, Nancy Pelosi with the acquiescence of Chuck Schumer. And I still believe that they told Joe that if he did not drop out of the race, they would have removed him from the presidency under the 25th Amendment. And interestingly enough, the only appeal to that, if a majority of the cabinet and the vice president go along with your replacement, the president does have the ability to appeal to the Congress, which is why having Pelosi and Schumer on board the plot to dump Joe became so incredibly.
And then it would have been, if there was a tie in the Senate, which it was close to, who would have broken the tie to remove him? The vice president.
Precisely. So, I mean, Joe was done. I think, by the way, that to this day, he's quite bitter about it. He was very bitter about it then. I suspect he's still bitter about it.
Biden didn't even know that he'd banned the liquid natural gas and couldn't believe it. But then when you don't have a president, that means you can't have real détente or foreign policy, and they can't talk to foreign leaders. Imagine how dangerous this was on the brink of nuclear war with this Ukraine-NATO war, literally having a headless horseman running the country. I mean, this is beyond treason. This is beyond scandal. This is total, insane madness. What needs to happen now? They need to be prosecuted. Good Lord. Trump keeps demanding it every day to Pam Bondi. This is open and shut. Where do we start? What do we do? Because there's so many people to indict here.
Well, a couple of things, Alex. First of all, I suspect, unfortunately, that Joe's incapacity actually worked very well with their foreign policy because they had no interest in peace between Ukraine and Russia. They had no interest in peace talks. They had no interest in dialogue. And Blinken would not allow it.
Sure, but that's the most dangerous way to prosecute a major war with a nuclear power, is not to be talking to them like we've always did. So my point is, they admit no calls for over 3 years. I understand why they liked it, but it just shows a bunch of lawyers that don't even understand the military history just arrogantly playing God. I mean, these people are just the most disgusting, arrogant, dangerous people I think we've ever seen.
Well, it's no worse than their decision to lift the sanctions on Iran and give them $190 billion in frozen assets. What did they think that the Iranian regime was going to do with that money? Feed the people? Not a chance. They used it to finance terrorism, and they used it to restart their nuclear weapons development program. This is their policy. This was not a mistake. This wasn't a misjudgment or some misguided idea. This is their policy. Here's your problem. It remains the same, Alex. Whether you charge, let's say, John Brennan and James Comey and Susan Rice and even Joe Biden in the Russian collusion hoax, where would they stand trial? In the District of Columbia? Trust me, you will not get a fair or honest trial in D.C. No Democrat will be convicted of any crime. When John Durham charged Michael Sussman, the lawyer at the very bottom of the Russian collusion hoax, which is like charging the guy who drove the getaway car for double parking while you let the bank robbers get away, they couldn't even get a conviction of him. When they caught the lawyer for the CIA, Kleinsmith, for the FBI, Kleinsmith, who had altered the 302 records for various witnesses, he got a slap on the wrist. He was disbarred for about 3 weeks, and then everything was right back to normal. So you will not find an honest judge in D.C. You will not find an honest trial in D.C. You will not find an honest jury in D.C. Take it from me, I can tell you firsthand. So if you want to charge James Comey or charge John Brennan, written 2 pieces this week on why Brennan is the key architect of the Russian collusion hoax. If you think you're going to get a conviction in D.C., good luck on that.
You say is the most powerful person at the White House?
Jeff.
Jeff is the most powerful person at the White House.
Other than like the president. There's probably like 5 or 6 people that work for Joe Biden and have worked for him for 30 years. One of them is Ron Clay. Ron worked for Biden when he was like a senator. There's a guy named Steve Ricchetti. He's like a senior advisor at the White House. Anita Dunn. Yeah, she's a senior advisor at the White House. Gene Sperling. He's an economics guy. Oh, his sister, Biden's sister, she like runs the Biden Foundation. They're the people that run his different departments. If they put it on his desk saying like, hey, we think you should do this to Obama's house.
So I feel like Barack Obama still very involved.
No, he is.
Yeah, Hillary was being interviewed, and she said, "I still talk to the White House every day."
She has people that are like super close to her that are still like senior people in the White House.
So who is she talking to in the White House?
Probably near Tandon.
And I hope that Hillary's still involved behind the scene, because
No, treasonous Barack Obama, and that's what comes up. He was the key. And Hillary Clinton were running the White House under Joe Biden. Obama is very involved, says Tyler Robinson, special advisor to the administrator, U.S. Small Business Administration, working directly as a deputy to the chief of staff, Ron Klain, who Roger Stone said, if they steal the election in 2020, it'll be Ron Klain, who works for who? Barack Obama. And he says in this long 18-minute undercover video, he says, well, basically you gave it to Ron Klain. He was the president. He said.
what's your title?
Special advisor. I work for the chief of staff directly.
Oh, you report to the chief of staff. So author's the chief of staff to Guzman.
Yeah, Isabella Guzman.
So she's basically a spokesperson for Biden.
Yeah.
She's indirectly campaigning for Biden.
Yes. Yeah.
Administrator Guzman said basically are going to these critical battleground states to basically campaign for President Biden.
Anytime we go, we try to visit with a member of Congress if they're a Democrat. The White House was like, yes, go. Don't invite the other senator because he's a Republican. And don't invite the two members of Congress because they're Republicans. There's a guy named Jeff Sykes. I mean, by getting Jeff's sign off, you're getting the president to sign off. People call him like the second most powerful person in Washington. Most times it's like, hey, whatever this guy says is what the president says.
Who would you say is the most powerful person at the White House?
Jeff.
Jeff is the most powerful person at the White House.
Other than like the president. There's probably like 5 or 6 people that work for Joe Biden and have worked for him for 30 years. One of them is Ron Clay. Ron worked for Biden when he was like a senator. There's a guy named Steve Roche. He's like a senior advisor at the White House. Anita Dunn. Yeah, she's a senior advisor at the White House. Gene Sperling. He's an economics guy. Oh, his sister, Biden's sister. She runs the Biden Foundation. They're the people that run his different departments. If they put it on his desk saying hey, we think you should do this, no problem.
So I feel like Barack Obama's still very involved.
No, he is.
Yeah, Hillary was being interviewed, and she said, "I still talk to the White House every day."
She has people that are super close to her that are still senior people in the White House.
So who is she talking to in the White House?
Probably near Tandon.
And I hope that Hillary's still involved behind the scene, because
no, she is.
Biden's thing, cheating on a law school exam, you shouldn't be thrown out for cheating, but you should probably be punished for going to law school at all.
What I'm doing is going out and demonstrating to the American people that I have command of all my faculties, that I don't need notes, I don't need teleprompt. I can go out and answer any questions at all. And so, what was happening though, 1 month ago dying, May 30th, 2018. Was it 2015 he died? 2015. I think it's 2015.
There has been a lot of attention paid to language in the report about the president's memory, so let me say a few words about that.
Special counsel of her is, as far as I remember, is obviously a Republican, a prosecutor. He's not a medical doctor. He's just not. It's not for him to speak to. It's just not.
We interviewed the president and asked him about his recorded statement. Quote, "I just found all the classified stuff downstairs," end quote. He told us that he didn't remember saying that to his ghostwriter. He also said he didn't remember finding any classified material in his home after his vice presidency. And he didn't remember anything about how classified documents about Afghanistan made their way into his garage.
There is nothing relevant or material that our committee can learn from an audio tape, which we cannot learn from the 250 pages of the transcript. The format of the medium does not change the content of the communications.
Did I have this? Was this in my possession, this memo?
Yes, and to give you some context for this, Mr. President, it was found in the front of this notebook that's on the first page, and the notebook was found in the library at the Lake House in one of the drawers in the cabinet.
You don't recall. I don't recall how it got back. I mean,
were you aware that you had kept it after your term as vice president? Did you know that you had it?
I don't know that I knew, but it wasn't something I would have stopped to think about.
Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden is the best Biden ever.
She knows so long as she was denied.
In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been.
President Biden has a photographic memory.
Ageism is an issue. Americans have a rich history of holding people's physical characteristics against them. Okay, you can ask African Americans.
He's older. That doesn't mean that he is unfit, and there's a lot of ageism there.
Now, this age attack, this obsession by the right.
Things are frightening. You have Wall Street Journal running a horribly sourced piece saying that Biden is unfit.
Dubious Wall Street Journal report about the president's acuity.
Shoddy story by the Wall Street Journal questioning Biden's mental fitness.
So they've been gaslighting that Biden's the smartest, greatest, photographic memory. I mean, he's just God on earth. Because an oligarchy of special interests are getting away with massive crimes, human trafficking, hundreds of billions stolen with Ukraine, selling our secrets to China. I mean, they are getting filthy rich, and Biden doesn't know what planet he's on. And the Justice Department has already said, because he is not cognizant, that he can't be tried, but he can be the president.
Should I allow Hunter to give his opening statement first?
Doesn't appear Mr. Biden showed up for his public hearing, so we'll recognize you, Mr. Boblitsky.
We're now learning that Hunter Biden is attending some of the president's meetings at the White House.
Since he returned from Camp David last evening with his father, we understand that Hunter Biden has even joined some meetings and conversations that have taken place between the president and some of his most senior advisors and senior staff.
A massive, unprecedented scandal involving treason and corruption on a level that 20 years ago would have been a constant media event due to its alarming nature and the implications regarding the national security of the United States of America. Instead, the Donald Trump lawfare circus takes center stage.
Breaking news out of Donald Trump's legal battles.
As a result, the hubris of the powers that be are driving Americans into a constant exercise of critical thinking, strengthening a massive resistance of human awareness.
Thank you, everybody. Have a seat. Have a seat. Thank you. Vice President Biden. Vice President Biden. Vice President. That was a joke. That was all set up. My president, Joe Biden. Vice President Harris.
What a very sad thing it is in our nation, when not only have we witnessed the theft of a so-called election, but we've been lied to and harassed through unelected, unappointed criminals operating with full authority and cover-up by mainstream media.